Delays seem to be something that are rather synonymous with Square Enix these days, especially when it comes to their mobile titles, and it looks like King's Knight Wrath of the Dark Dragon is suffering on this front quite a bit, as it's now been delayed for a second time, and not for a small reason either. To give some context to this, Square Enix's woes with mobile titles aren't sporadic. Outside of Record Keeper, Brave Exvius and Mobius, which are shining lights, there are other titles that don't quite have the same fantastic track record. In 2016, Square Enix announced titles such as Justice Monsters 5, Dissidia Opera Omnia, and King's Knight, and despite quite short turnaround times associated to these titles, none of them hit their intended deadlines. Justice Monsters 5, which was announced that uncovered Final Fantasy 15 as a supporting mobile title for the main game, was delayed 2 months later due to technical difficulties. The news came via Hajime Tabata on the Active Time report in May, where he said we'd be getting a new release date at E3 2016, which didn't happen. A few weeks after the show, the developers announced via Twitter that they were aiming to release the game at the end of August 2016, which they did actually manage to stick to, as the game ended up releasing on the 30th of August. However, by the end of December 2016, activity was so low that Square Enix decided to shut the game down, something which is happening on the 27th of March, meaning it will have only been live for 209 days. Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia was announced for mobile during a big live stream for the arcade game on the 27th of August. It was given a 2016 release window, but on the 8th of November, just 2 months later, we learned that it would be delayed because they'd encountered some bugs that needed fixing. The game did eventually launch on the 1st of February 2017, which was announced at the Final Fantasy 30th anniversary opening ceremony. King's Knight is perhaps the most extreme instance out of the three. It was announced during the 2016 Tokyo Game Show and came as a genuine surprise. And I say that because I don't think anyone felt Final Fantasy 15 needed another supporting mobile game, although there has actually since been another one announced. King's Knight also has no relation to Final Fantasy 15, apart from the fact Noctis and his crew play it during their downtime in the main game. In fact, it's actually its own franchise, with Wrath of the Dark Dragon meant to be acting as a reboot. When it was announced, the trailer said it would release in 2016, yet nothing was heard after, and on the 27th of December, yep, around 2 months later, something that seems to be a pattern, we learnt that the game had been delayed. But compared to the other two games, which did end up releasing soon after their initial delays, King's Knight is going pretty bad. Last week, Square Enix announced that the game, which did actually see a soft launch in Australia last November, will be undergoing a large-scale renewal update, and that the Australian soft launch will be suspended as of the 30th of March. In other words, they're basically reworking the entire game. Along with the announcement, they stated that service would resume at some point within 2017, and just left it at that. Given that Final Fantasy 15 has now been out for quite a few months, it feels like they've kind of missed the boat with this one. When it does eventually relaunch, if indeed that does actually happen, I'm struggling to see who's going to be interested. The tie-in it had with Final Fantasy 15 will be so shallow at that point, and it also doesn't feature the Final Fantasy branding anywhere, so unless the game turns out to be amazing and they do a ton of promotion, it may well end up like Justice Monsters 5. Elsewhere, if you haven't picked it up yet, A King's Tale Final Fantasy 15 has now been released for free on the PlayStation Store and Xbox Store. When it was announced at E3 2016, A King's Tale actually caused a lot of confusion, as it was only playable if you pre-ordered Final Fantasy 15 from certain retailers. It wasn't included with any others, including the Ultimate Collector's Edition, and it just led to the whole pre-ordering process becoming really complicated. The game itself is a retro-styled action game similar to games of old like Golden Axe and Streets of Rage. You play as Regis in a fictitious story that takes place 30 years before the main events of Final Fantasy 15. It features Claris, Wescom and Cid as companions to help Regis, and the classic summons from the main game also make an appearance. It's a pretty short game, but what's there is decent, and you'll get some longevity out of the dream battles, but I wouldn't go in with expectations that are too high. Anyway, how do you guys feel about the delay to King's Knight? Are you surprised? And if it does come out, will you check it out? Also, how many of you have downloaded A King's Tale so far? Let us know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. If you'd like to support our channel, please head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/FFunion. These awesome folks have already done so why not join them? Alright guys, thanks for watching. This is Daryl signing out. See you next time.